episode 2 of the TV Autopsy, slicing its way through the series you love. My name is James.
My name is Deborah.
Mine is Megan.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to,
Hello.
the slightly revamped, I should say, TV Autopsy. So I did a kind of trial run of this back in 2020, all those months ago. And I'm really delighted that you two have agreed to come and join me because I'm sick of hearing Wyndham and Laurie's voices, basically. So I thought it would make a lovely change to have you two on. So,
do the listeners know the connection?
well, this is what I was just going to say.
Okay.
So, Deborah,
Yes.
how are you connected to the podcast?
I am married to Laurie.
I'm so sorry.
I went to university with James
Yeah,
and Wyndham.
absolutely. And Megan, how about you?
So Wyndham has the just deep joy of being my brother. And so so I know all of you guys through him and his university
Yeah,
connection
we've known each other for
all
years.
those years ago as well.
So
Many drinking sessions later.
absolutely. So we're going to get on like a house on fire. So Megan, this podcast is all about series. We'll focus on TV series, mainly new. Some we're going to go back down memory lane for, but we're going to try and stay current as possible. What sort of series would grab your interest?
Oh. Do you know what? I would say I've got a broad eclectic taste. If everyone's raving about something, then I absolutely don't want to miss out.
Lovely.
So, I'd like to think I'm an early adopter of some of these cult viewings, such as Tiger King. And I love some of these like outrageous documentaries. I love a bit of fantasy and alternative worlds, and just anything that is well made, it's got a good story, and
Brilliant.
It's binge worthy.
Brilliant. So we're going to be pretty broad on this podcast. How about you, Deborah? Same question to you.
Exactly the same as what Megan just said. There you go.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't know you'd be so compliant. How wonderful. All right. So we're gonna kick off, I think, by talking about a series that we've been watching recently that we like. A little review. Cutting Edge.
Excuse me. Are you the Bluths?
Dr. Wordsmith, how's my son?
He's going to be all right.
Oh,
thank God.
Finally, some good news
There's
from
no
this
other way
guy.
to take that.
That's a great attitude. I gotta tell you, if I was getting this news, I don't know that I'd take it this well.
But you said he was all right.
Yes, he's lost his left hand, so he's going to be all right.
You son of...
Megan, you got anything that's cutting edge?
Well, I did loads and loads of watching. So I'm going to through the last 12 months. So basically, anything cutting edge is anything I watched in the last 12 months. Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
So a quirky one, which probably isn't hitting the mainstream, but I just thought was jaw-droppingly, brilliantly acted and shocking storyline, is called The Act, and you can watch it on Star Plays, and it is well worth a 1 month subscription of $1.99 just to watch this one series. And it's about a mother and daughter where the daughter has so many things wrong with her. She really very, very poorly, and then it all becomes to unravel as a story during the series, and it's a Munchausen by proxy situation.
Oh, wow.
And
Right.
it is
Sorry, just to explain, because we're all going, oh yes, we know what that means. So Munchausen by proxy is when the parent kind of makes out that the child is ill when they're not, basically.
or makes them ill by giving them the drugs, or
Like
convincing
in
everyone
Sixth
else.
Sense, the woman and that child in Sixth Sense. Yes.
Yeah, and it is, and the mother gets murdered.
Ooh.
All right, no more
And
spoilers. No,
it's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler. It's not
Oh,
a spoiler.
okay.
There's just lots of panning backwards and forwards, and
right.
and all of this starts emerging, and it is the most fascinating thing. And then I watched a documentary about the case, and it was even like then looking back on this the series, the act was just even better because it was just so well done.
Well, just saying that I've got stars because I've watched Mr. Mercedes and The Stand's been on there and loads of really, for £2 a month, it's a real bargain. And that was on my list, so I'm going to check that out.
Watch it.
I will. For me, it's a two series thing called Nosferatu, I read the book by Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son, and it's all about this guy called Charlie Manx, who's he basically steals the souls and life force of children by putting them in the back of his 1930s Rolls-Royce Wraith, and drives them to a place in his mind called Christmasland. And it sounds so bonkers. And as they go, they get more and more excited about going to play games like Scissors for the Reaper, or just nasty stuff. And I loved the book, and then I was obsessed with watching the series, and it's not out over here yet, and I couldn't find it anywhere. But I was able to. It came out on DVD, both seasons, which kind of encapsulate the whole story. And I just loved. I soaked that up in about 3 evenings. I was watching like 7 hours a night. Couldn't stop.
And how many episodes are there?
So there's 20 in total. So
Wow.
season 1 and season 2. Season 1's about the protagonist, who basically has a power to create a bridge which helps her find lost things. And so the first part is all about her as a child, and the second part is about her as an adult, and it's just great.
And is there any relation to Nosferatu, the film?
No, except this guy Charlie Manx has a vampiric quality, and they saw the humor of him calling his car, the number plate is NOS 4A2, which again, for the whole book, as I was reading this book, I read it as NOS 4A2 and had no idea it was actually Nosferatu, because I am that stupid.
Okay. Good old stupid James.
Good old stupid me. All right, so let's move on to Flatliners. Flatliners are series that we would not be recommending. All right, so I haven't got anything actually. As I said, all my time's taken up with this. But Megan, I think you might have something for us.
Totally have. Warrior Nun.
that sounds amazing. Warrior Nun.
I know. I did watch every single episode, so I guess there's an element of it that does keep you viewing it, but it's terrible.
Okay.
I mean, it's several hours that I won't get back in my life, and I really, it's one of those ones that Netflix goes, oh, you've watched this, and this, you're gonna want to watch this. So I did, and I can't recommend it at all.
Yeah.
Does it describe what it says on the tin? Is it about a nun that is a warrior?
It's sort of like one of these ancient sects of martial arts nuns,
right?
And they're trained from infancy in, and they're
Is there anyone notable in it?
Not anymore.
No.
No.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much, Megan. And Deborah, have you got anything?
You.
Pardon?
Y-O-U. You.
Oh yeah.
It's about, must have been about 5 episodes, and honestly, what drivel, and just almost slightly offensive as well.
Okay.
and
stalking this girl, and it's just awful.
I completely agree with you. Loads of people were raving about it. I started watching it. I probably got about 4 or 5 episodes in, and it was horrendous. I didn't have any sympathy for him. I didn't have any sympathy for any of the characters. Whilst it was appalling what he was doing, I kind of thought most of them deserved it. and it was
Yeah.
just I had no empathy for anybody, and I just had to cut and run, cut my losses.
It reminds me of, I tried to watch the second Ali G film, and I had to stop when it got to the bit where he went in the synagogue. And I know these things are semi-set up, but he went into a synagogue and he basically started speaking to these two old Jewish ladies about how the Holocaust hadn't happened, and how, you know, Jews could read minds, and they're all, you know, and I just thought, what there is no, the victims of your humor and they're being very nice, trying to educate him about, well, Jews aren't like that, Jews are nice, and to kind of throw cheap jokes like that I thought was sick. And I just think sometimes people really miss the point, and if you're going to put somebody through a difficult time in a series, you've got to think about the wider picture, I think, and, you know, how it might affect people, because I'm all up for humor, and I'm all up for, you know, bad jokes, all that kind of stuff, but it's about, you know, who it becomes a focus of, really.
Yeah. Flatliner.
So we are going to move on to our main feature, and the series up for dissection this month is The Terror, Season 1. So let's have a clip.
You must wonder what we're doing here in your part of the world. We are from England, very far away. We've come here to find a way through to China and India.
Now is our moment to strive to our glory and to our destiny.
Our situation is more dire than you may understand.
That is how you already see it. In need of saving.
I do.
Our men have been out there in unimaginable temperatures. No one can convince me that optimism or confidence is wrong enough.
As a trusted friend once put it, this place wants us dead.
So, The Terror, 10 episodes that arrived this month, March 2021, on BBC Two. It was originally released in March 2018 with AMC in the USA. It's based on a book by Dan Simmons, who wrote that book in 2007. Executive producer Ridley Scott. David Kajganich, and I hope I've said his name nicely and correctly, basically wrote the screenplay and directed a number of the episodes, and he worked alongside Sue Hugh, who did Under the Dome, the Stephen King adaptation, and then there are other couple of directors, Una Welch and a few others. There is a second season, which is called The Terror Infamy, but it's a completely different story set in World War II, and that came out in August last year, and they are potentially thinking of a third season. So it's a bit like, I don't know, like the Twilight Zone or something.
American Horror Story.
The American Horror Show.
So could you go through the notable actors for us, please, Deborah?
Yes. So we have Captain Francis Crozier, and that's played by Jared Harris, and you might remember him from Chernobyl, The Crown, Mad Men, Fringe. He is the son of Richard Harris. Then you've got Commander James Fitzjames. He is played by Tobias Menzies. He's in Game of Thrones. He's in The Crown. He plays Prince Philip in The Crown. You've got Dr. Harry Goodser, who's a Scottish surgeon naturalist, who's played by Paul Reedy. He's in Motherland. He's the stay-at-home dad in Motherland. He was in Bodyguard. Captain John Franklin, who is played by Kieran Hines. He was Mance Rayder in Game of Thrones. He's also in various other things. And then you've got the Corker's mate, Cornelius Hickey, played by Adam Nigatis, who's in Chernobyl. And then you've got Sailing Master Thomas Blanky, who's played by Ian Hart. He's best known as Professor Quirrell. He plays all the John Lennons in Backbeat and all that. And Lady Silence is played by Neve Nielsen. Now, she's a singer-songwriter from Greenland, and she's got this amazing little band called the Deer Children, or Children of the Deer. Anyway, she's very successful with her band. She plays a little red ukulele.
Thank you very much. All right, so Deborah, why did you choose? Could you give us a synopsis?
Okay, so It's a fictionalized account of Captain Sir John Franklin's lost expedition to the Arctic in 1845 to 1848. They set sail on 2 vessels, which were the most advanced vessels of its day. One's called the Erebus and the other is called Terror, HMS Erebus. That's kind of it in a.
It's about what happened. Yeah, what happened to that expedition. So,
yeah.
Megan, what did you think? First thoughts.
So, very first thoughts were, "Oh, this isn't my kind of thing."
Okay.
And I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was brilliant. I'm sure we'll get into the weeds of what I mean, and I've got 1 or 2 bugbears about it, but I have not been able to stop thinking about it. It's prompted me. I've wanted to go and read up on which bits were, evidence-based or how much of it could be true, and recognizing there's obviously some bits which are clearly fictionalized. But I was really obsessed with it.
And what was the moment that you changed your opinion? So from when you went through, oh, I don't know, I'm going to like this, to bang, it's got you.
Probably in episode 3, I was kind of like, God, this is dragging a bit. 10 episodes, this is going to take a bit of time.
Right, wow.
And then there's some kind of monster, or there's some kind of dark force out there that is attacking and picking people off, etc. And I'm just thinking something interesting's got to happen, and there's a major, I don't know how many, are we giving a few spoilers on this?
We are, yeah. We can't review the series without doing spoilers, so yeah.
So okay, so I'm there going, something needs to happen, and lo and behold, old polar bear King Kong turns up and delivers Sir John a gruesomely grisly death at the rat trap.
We'll get on to that in a minute. I mean, I'm kind of
hooked to that point.
I'm kind of slightly not the opposite, but I really enjoyed those initial episodes. The bits where they're just going on their voyage and how the ship worked and the dynamics between the captain and his lieutenants and the other captain. I mean, that was for me the best bit, and I suppose it kind of started to drag for me when they were just stuck on the ice for ages, really, because I wanted them to continue a voyage, continue their mission. But that's interesting. Deborah, how about you?
That's that exasperation, isn't it? I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was pretty much set for me straight away. You got pretty much the idea that this is all about bleak, foreboding, menace, atmospheric. That you are watching the dynamics and relationships and the shallow politics that goes on between captain and subordinates, and the sort of the way that you've got Crozier being the sort of more cautious kind of seaman who's attempting to persuade Franklin to abandon the mission because it's being too dangerous. But obviously Franklin wants to, he's had a blemished career, and he wants to go off in his retirement, and he's, as being the one that's found the Northwest Passage. And of course, he seemed to be the guy that's very well liked, but very little respected. Crozier seemed to be very kind of dour. And you sort of see the divisions and you see the relationships, and there's so much going on in terms of what's happening between the two. And then you get this added layer, this added supernatural layer that would it be a different film without the Tunbak, which is this kind of, for me, was an abominable snowman, kind of Yeti, polar bear, kind of supernatural thing. But I think it's also a metaphor for the environment being a very hostile, very dangerous, very menacing as well, murderous, fearful. I think, it's got this double layer of reality and what must it have been like. This actually happened in terms of the reality of 129 people went on these 2 boats and vanished in the Arctic after several winters of -50 degrees centigrade. this is, what would we have done in that situation? We kind of can resonate a little bit in terms of lockdown and what we've had our own personal experiences of cabin fever. But that reality is there. What happened? Was there botulism? Was there cannibalism? Was there lead poisoning? There is evidence around all of those things.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that in a bit. One of the things that kind of struck for me was there were kind of three kind of main areas in this series. We had the bit on the boat, and then the bit when they were in the frozen area, and a bit where they were trying to, get home,
on land.
get on land. And design-wise, I thought the boat worked brilliantly. I was, completely engaged, especially when they were at sea, and obviously when they were at land and on the tents. But I don't know, but when they were on the frozen waters and the frozen ice, it just looked to me a bit like a Doctor Who set, and I couldn't get away from how fake the ice looked.
It didn't even feel CGI. I thought CGI. It felt like it was on a set to me.
Yeah. And that was a real shame.
It felt like they could pick up the ice blocks as polystyrene and throw them around.
And for me, that was a real shame because I thought the rest of it, the location work looked brilliant. And
my number one bugbear on it, and I don't know if either of you have, but I've been in the Arctic Circle, not as far north as they went, but I've been in the Arctic Circle and they were nowhere near cold enough. I just didn't get the feel that they were.
Yeah.
That there wasn't the breath or the absolute. I can't move my fingers because it's so cold.
And sometimes they were quite bare, weren't they? I think so. They filmed it in Budapest, and it was the set that Ridley Scott used, the special effects and digital stuff that Ridley Scott used in The Martian was used here. And they also filmed it on the island of Pag in Croatia. And of course, there was, the temperatures weren't quite right. Now, the Budapest ones, they could say, actually, the set was cold enough when we were filming because you could see our breath. But actually, when you do watch it back, you can see this is a bit CGI. I think for me, the CGI at the end, the Tumbak at the end, was a bit of a shame because it was kind of, it did feel, if I'm being picky, it did feel like it was an animated, an animation where, the fear should have been there for us because this thing was going to rip everyone to shreds, and it did. Whereas I think I felt more fearful of the men and what they were up to, what Hickey was up to. That's where my real fear is.
Do you think, just because obviously Ridley Scott was heavily involved in this process, and I couldn't help watching it thinking, is this Alien in 1900s?
Well, he's a man who knows his way around a trap ship, housing a monster, keen to pick off its crew one by one.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. He did have
no, not at all.
But you can't watch it without thinking, it is Alien under a different kind of.
But I think it would be it needed that layer. It needed something because to Megan's point earlier, it would be a different film if it was just looking at the mental health and the relationships and what was going on between the men over 10 episodes. And I think it's a good, useful device. It's a tangible visual device that if I'm using Tumbak as a metaphor for the environment, this bleak, menacing, hostile, dangerous environment, that's a visual representation of that. That device is used in lots of things, like in Game of Thrones, for example, where you've got all this infighting, all this relationship and politics and things going on. But the actual bigger picture is the winter is coming, and it's the supernatural layer of the White Walkers that are coming along to take over. And in fact, George R.R. Martin said at first, I'm just going to make it that it's going to be like this deep freeze that everyone is scared of, this like winter is coming thing. But actually, he then added the White Walkers in to make the supernatural element, makes us all fearful. And I think this device works here. As Megan said, when it came in episode 3, when it started stalking the ship, that's this other thing, apart from this infighting going on. There's something out there that's pretty scary.
So I want to take us back to the main characters, really, and Megan. How did those main characters on the ship and their partnerships back home in England work out for you?
I thought really well, actually. I thought there was a handful. There was a small number where we got a bit of the backstory from London. So Sir John, Francis Crozier, and James Fitzjames.
Yeah.
Yes.
We got bits of them. Lady Jane, Sir John's wife, who, when I then read up about it, it was really quite
And
material.
I really liked her. I thought she was great as a character, as an actor, the lot.
Yeah, and she was responsible for the fact that they had Neptune the dog on ship and the monkey. They were gifted by her. So she's kind of there's bits of her throughout, even though she clearly wasn't on the expedition. I really liked the character development. And I think that the main ones for me was Crozier. I thought his character arc was excellent. You developed a real deep respect. Well, I developed a really deep respect.
You couldn't help but love him as a captain. You wanted him to win.
He was a risk assessor, which is excellent in my view.
But there is a point, isn't there, though, where you felt you move away from him slightly when he obviously falls foul to alcoholism, and it's the point where he's doing the lashings and he's keep going on at lashing at Hickey, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, we're going a bit too far here, and what are we meant to feel here? We're meant to feel okay, you know.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I felt there, because I thought I loved all the portrayals of all the characters except for Hickey. I thought his I thought his performance, and I know he was supposed to be smug and manipulative and all that, but I just thought it was too much, and I just felt his real character seeping through too much. I didn't like his performance, and it was grating on me by the end. And I guess here that I'm in the minority. So when they were lashing him, I was thinking, bring it on.
I was all for the lashings.
I mean, I was happy that he was getting lashed, and I say happy in the kind of sense. But when it kept going on, and and everyone started to turn and look, and I was like, this isn't great. This is.
But I think that was a real.
That's the turning point, though.
It was a real fulcrum for Crozier, because he'd had his authority challenged by Sir John. Sir John, who was like, this is a bit of a pride mission for him. He's been out in Australia and has come back under shady clouds, and he's not covered himself in glory. So he's now on this mission to sort of like find the Northwest Passage and all of that sort of stuff, and was actively challenging Crozier's superior knowledge and the flashbacks to London, where he had done him down and saw him. He wasn't of the same social setting.
It's the Irish heritage, isn't it?
And I thought that the lashings point was he yes, it got away from him a little bit with the, as Hickey's talking back to him and he's hiking the number of lashings up 10 at a time, and it's like 15, 20, 30. At the point that those lashings then started, he has to stand there, and it's uncomfortable for everybody, but he's kind of made his bed and he has to stand by it. And I thought that was I
suppose for me, I'm going to come on to you, Deborah, for your character analysis next. But with James and with Sir John and with Crozier and with Lady Silence and all the other characters, I firmly believed that they were from the time of, what was it, the 1890s, 1880s, whatever it was.
1840s.
1840s. I firmly believed they were from that period. Whereas with Hickey, I felt he just walked out shameless, and I thought it was a little bit too woo, little bit too right. And I know that was part of his character, but for me, it just felt anachronistic.
I know what you mean. I think he's got this streetwise intelligence about him, and I thought he was too intelligent maybe for what he should have been. But then we don't know what he was, because he wasn't really key. What we know is that he's got this very intense social ambition to kind of, climb his way up the social ladder. And obviously his early efforts failed. So he then gets this newfound kind of contempt for authority, which obviously leads to mutiny, right? And bearing in mind, so I was following his arc. So I kind of went from, we kind of get introduced to him through the whole carnal pleasures below deck thing. He gets caught below deck, with his sweetheart, if you like.
But that was a manipulation thing, which I liked. So that was only doing that really to further his own power on the ship, I think, wasn't it?
Possibly. And then the next, but at that point we don't know, because he's just a character that's just sort of being introduced. Then you see him where they're burying that first young boy, and he then sort of jumps down into the grave to cover him up, and you think, oh, he's being respectful, but what he's actually doing, and what you don't realize he's doing, is he's nicking the ring off his.
He's robbing
the guy's ring. And then you see him, he's sharing whiskey with the captain, with Captain Crozier, who seemed to know he was not from where he was, that he was covering up, he was from Ireland. And then he goes out to get Lady Silence when the Tumback is attacked, and he gets his ass kicked, right? So by that point, we already know he's stirring the pot a bit. He gets lashed. We think maybe it might be disproportionate to the punishment or whatever. So he becomes vengeful, more mutinous, and then this kind of rank and background no longer matters. It's all about survival, his social climbing, his ambition. And don't forget that he's a tiny man in comparison to a lot of the actors in there, and he did actually starve the actor. Gatus did actually starve himself for it. They all had to sort of not eat.
I think
the fact that he took his tongue off at the very end, it took off his most powerful asset, because it's his oratory skills, his ability to persuade. That was his arc.
I agree. But I mean, that was coming more from the performance aspect, really. But he certainly had a very interesting character arc. Megan, was there anyone performance-wise that you thought wasn't great, or or any storylines even that maybe you think didn't really cut the mustard?
I think that there were a couple of bits that I would have wanted to know a bit more, and I don't know whether things ended up on the cutting room floor or not. I think Harry Goodsir, I would have liked to have known a little bit more about his backstory, because he was probably the crew member that was just the most.
Was he the one that ended up being the doctor?
He was the non-surgeon.
Oh, he was wonderful.
He was just gentle, so excellent. And at the end, when he's just like, eat my feet.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I miss? What if I miss? And then
ultimate sacrifice.
And I'm just like, oh my goodness. So he was brilliant. And actually his in the 1980s there was an expedition that brought some bodies back, and they analysed and did some autopsies, and they reckon that one of those bodies was Goodsir.
Yeah.
Was he missing like chunks of his arm and stuff?
So what they found ships in 2016 and 2000.
Tell you what, we'll talk about the factual stuff at the end.
Okay, all right.
Because I don't want to get mixed up with the TV.
I know.
But,
the one bit
he was wonderful. He was wonderful.
He really was
gentle, moral, empathetic,
bumbling, and when he was offering to pull the boat, and get involved and try, and he fell over.
It was just an all-round good egg, wasn't he? The bit that kind of clunked a little bit, and I didn't see it coming, and even once it happened, I didn't retrospectively see how it quite got there, was the ship surgeon kicking off at the carnival.
Right, yeah.
I think it was the surgeon, wasn't it? When he doused himself.
The GP, the doctor sort of thing.
The ship surgeon. Yeah, and he set fire to himself. And I was like, where did that come from?
I believe that came from when Goodsir went up to him and said, you know, we're doomed. We've been eating
Yes,
this
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
lead. We're poisoned. What are we going to do about it? And he's like, oh, leave it with me. And he obviously went away thinking, there's no way out of this.
I mean,
We're all dead.
I couldn't help thinking, right, that tent is not going to keep you guys warm. You just put up a tent.
I have to say, it was very intricate for what they...
Yeah, well, that kind of lost me as well. I mean, they'll be
the carnival.
Tent up, yeah.
Not one woman in sight. But
right now,
up.
Actually, Deborah, that brings me on to my next question.
Yeah.
Right, in terms of female contribution and the characters that we had Lady Silence, Lady Jane, and I can't remember the name of the other one. Do you think they were well served? Do you think they added to the story?
Well, I suppose there's always a need to have two genders. I mean, are we allowed to even say that anymore? It needed some female input, and that was fine. You know, ultimately, we are watching a story about 129 crewmen.
Lady Jane. My only regret is that we didn't see a bit more of her. I thought she was going to be leading. I thought she was going to be on the boat going to rescue her husband at one point.
Well, she did. I mean, she did fund a number of it, didn't she? She raised a lot of money to.
But that kind of fizzled out, and we'll come
in the film. Series it did. Yeah.
But what about? All right, Deborah. What about Lady Silence? Did she add a lot, or was she just functionary? I mean, either of you chip in.
No, I mean, you know, I think she's definitely not functionary. She
was representative of the Inuit culture.
Of the people.
Yeah,
yep.
Inuit. That's right, isn't it? For
Inuit,
the Inuit culture. You know, yes, she was there representing. You also got you know, with her relationship that she had with both Goodsir and Crozier, you got an idea that she cared about their welfare. But without her and the death of her father, there wouldn't have been this whatever spirit that.
Interestingly, I didn't ever really get the impression that she cared that much. I think she wanted to. She was representative of the desire for the Inuits to get rid of them. They'd effectively invaded. They had scared off all the game. I took the Tumbuk to be the sort of like spiritual protector of not just the environment but the Inuit people. And that even though it wasn't quite clear, by the end of it I was like, there's definitely a link between Lady Silence and the Tumbuk, and I thought she was crucial to sort of like have various, not just the Crozier and Goodsir, but all of the characters. I think had it been a male Inuit, it wouldn't have had the same.
Yeah, and it was a great link between that and the Tumbuk and stuff like that.
I wish she went and searched for the keys properly at the end rather than just hacking his hand off.
You know,
it's like the keys are over there.
Or she could have tried a bit longer with the stone. I mean, the Tumbuk was dead. There was no immediate threat. She could have spent a good half hour trying to get that off first.
Yeah, and but I think that, you know, the relationship that she built with both Goodsir and Crozier, whilst I think you're right, Megan, you know, the whole protecting you know, bugger off kind of thing. She went to Crozier, didn't she, pretty much first, and didn't really care about anybody else, and saved him, took him home.
Okay, so this brings us.
Can I just say, in terms of performance value, I thought they all acted really, really well, but I was really impressed with Ian Hart, who played Thomas Blanky. Now, for ages, I thought he was John Sims for ages because of the hair. So he was the one who lost his leg and who ended up being
he was
I thought he was so excellent.
He was very good. Yeah,
Professor Quirrell. Yeah.
I mean, it was a really good, refreshing cast of all ages and stuff like that. I mean, I really loved Sir John.
Yeah,
you know, you could really see his pomposity.
I like Sir John. Yeah,
fallibility. And my God, was that a shock? Well, because when you want, when you put someone in the credits at the start as well, you're thinking,
Yeah.
oh, well,
He didn't last many episodes, did he?
God.
I didn't expect him to
And
go
his
in
face
episode 3.
was going down. All right,
Yeah.
so has anyone got any problems with the series, or any unanswered questions, things that they didn't really delve into enough? I mean, my only problem, really, my biggest problem, was I felt that I understood why the captain stayed with the Inuits, but did he not have a duty to go back and tell us?
Now, I've discussed this with Laurie. So this is my take is the captain goes down with his ship, right? And he didn't. So if he was to go home, he would have to face the music.
In fairness, I don't know if he could have got down with it because it was frozen in the ice.
But so that there would be some kind of hearing, investigation. How come you've survived? No one else has. He would have to go home and face the music. His career would be over. Unlikely that he would want to go on another expedition anyway after this experience, but unlikely he'd ever be employed again. He knew that his love would have moved on, married, gone somewhere else. So he knew that was nothing, not there for him anymore. He's been there for 2 years before this.
All right, well, you've justified that.
The rescuers came along.
I'm completely agree with all of that. I quite liked that little. I thought that was
ending.
It was a lovely ending, really, for the whole.
He's become the environment, hasn't he? He's
got into the wild environment. So, is there anything that you were unhappy with, or before we are moving on to our big 5?
Yeah, they weren't cold enough.
Weren't cold enough.
Yeah, they
really upset me all the way through.
It was sets for me. The set.
Sometimes their fingers were exposed, their heads were exposed, and you would be doing that rather than
in those temperatures that I've been in -20, it would have gone to -40 at least at times.
Yep.
Your snot freezes in your nose at
and
that
they
temperature.
talked about it enough, didn't they? I mean, they talked about a bit where a tooth could explode in someone's mouth.
You can't do things with your hands, and they didn't have anywhere near the equipment, obviously, that we do now. They were entirely unprepared, and the level of clothing. When you see the Inuits in all their seal fur,
and suddenly it was all warm and toasty. All they had to do was go in between one piece of wood, and suddenly
shirt, sleeves, and a naval coat.
Anyway, not taken away from it. So we're going to do what we call the big 5, ladies, which are 5 things that we get to choose. Each of us what we think are. It will make sense as we go along. So the first one is the performance of the series, and I am going to choose. I'm going to choose Sir John, because I just thought he nailed that pomposity, and I've already just said that all, but I really liked his performance, and I wasn't in it a lot, but for me, he was up there. Megan.
I see, lob the curveball.
Yeah.
I would say I think it has to be Crozier.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Crozier.
Just thought he was excellent.
Yeah,
all the way through.
We cared, right? We really cared. You know what? I took a punt, because this is all conjecture, right? It's all poetic license. This is all made up by this guy Dan Simmons as to what's happened.
Yeah.
And I took a punt because historically we don't know what happened. It's been a century and a half worth of public kind of imaginations going wild. What's happened to these people? And I took a punt that actually maybe they didn't all just perish. Maybe 1 or 2 of them survived, and they decided to live out their days in the wilderness. And that happened with Crozier, and I was pleased for him. With all that happened, he made it. And I think Crozier, he's got to be the one. I think maybe the standout one. But they were all really good.
Good stuff. All right, so Deborah, I'm going to come to you first. Set piece of the series. What moment? So, for example, you could choose the carnival, or it could be, the climax or stuff like that.
Oh,
I know these are big questions.
God.
I can do mine while you're thinking.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with, just because it had one of the best lines in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been like maybe as early as episode 2, but when the first group strike out with the boat, they're trekking to leave a message at the cairn.
Yes.
And it's the first time there's an attack by the Turnbuck, so it comes out of the blue. And so I'm going to pick that one only because the line there, one of the guys, it starts hailing, and the hailstones are the size of I don't know what sort of ball size they're bigger than baseballs. I mean, they were massive. And the guy just goes, he says, and that's what I was just thinking, what we needed, more ice.
Brilliant.
I suppose for me, I'm gonna say, oh gosh, I'm gonna give my story to the bit at the end where our wonderful wannabe doctor sacrifices himself for the good.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Good. So
it was such a good thing to do. It's like, yeah, come on, don't eat the feet.
Excellent.
And I really enjoyed there were 2 bits that I enjoyed, which were quite intense. The bit where Thomas Blanky, that's Professor Quirrell, who's sitting answering James Fitzjames questions about what did he think about Sir John and what happened on the expedition and how did that all go. And I think that's where his performance stood out for me. It was like, you're amazing, describing what happened and how you discussed the mental health of what happened and how they were all about to murder Sir John, but then they were saved, and that was the end of that expedition. And then the other bit was when I suppose the secrets of James Fitzjames, his mask slipped, he'd been going around and being sarcastic and being pretty undermining to Crozier, and they'd become friends, and he told him how his background and how he came to be where he is, and that he's just a complete fake. And that hug and that was and then sending Blanky away with his forks all around his body. Come on then, come and eat me. It's not going to be a pleasant eat because you're going to be full of forks.
Brilliant. All right, so
Fuck you.
The stupid factor, the suspension of disbelief. All right, for me, I think I think it was when we saw a bit too much. I think it was when the Turnbuck put the legs and the body together. I just thought, that's a bit...
Oh, yes.
He did what? What did he do?
So there was a man's legs and a man's top half, wasn't there? And he was
there was a chap just stood on the deck, like leaning against the
but
side.
it was a different man's legs.
And it was
body.
It was two
Is that what it was?
Yeah. And I just thought, I think that's a little step too far, no matter how clever this creature is. Come on.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh, yeah, that's a bit silly.
How about you, Deborah? Megan, either of you?
Yeah, the way that he was animated at the end, it was just a bit too cartoon. Although he had very pretty eyes, but yeah.
So, special effect. What did you like the most? Anything? I'll tell you what I liked. I really liked her igloo. I really did.
Not for euphemism.
Well, I just thought, but I always thought an igloo had a little hole on the top which let the smoke out, but maybe not. Any effects that you think worked? I thought it had a good soundscape as well. I think
it was almost imperceptible, but when you did kind of hear it, it was sort of quite abstract music, Stockhausen in places. Yeah.
All right, Megan, anything?
Well, I think it was lacking a little bit on some of the effects. I think they could have drawn. I may not have emphasised this enough, but they didn't look cold enough. So maybe they could have added a little bit of breath. They nailed it in Game of Thrones. It's technically possible.
Okay, and resuscitation factor. Is there anything we'd like to see brought back? Would we like to see the further adventures of Captain Crozier as he settles into his Inuit lifestyle?
No, I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't think it's needed. I think
Lady Jane's further voyages, trying to find the Northwest Passage with her trusty female psychics.
I would like to have known what happened to Lady Silence, and I would like to have known what happened to DeVoe, who she walked past after the carnage.
We don't talk about what happened to Lady Silence.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that was made very clear by everybody. Sorry, where is she? We don't talk about it.
Yeah. It's what we do.
What we do.
You need to accept it now.
All right.
Accept it.
Okay, before we score it, have you got any final thoughts and comments that you'd like to share?
So, more than 30 bodies were found on King William Island, and most are still buried there. Although 2 were returned, Lieutenant John Irving was identified through personal effects, and he was buried in Dean Cemetery in Edinburgh in 1881. And I visited that cemetery. Second body was thought to be another lieutenant. He was interred at Greenwich Old Naval College, but in 2009, they moved him and they did a facial reconstruction that they carried out, produced a very close match of one of those very old photographs. They're called the daguerreotypes. And they realized it was Henry Goodsir. Tooth and Animal suggested the upbringing was in East Scotland and he was raised in Fife.
All right, now I'm going to stop you there because there's a lot of information to get across, and people who are just kind of coming into the series might take that. It might be a little bit much for them.
Oh, all right. Okay, let me give you one more thing then.
All right, go.
Okay, so in 2019, they were going to go and do a deep dive again down to the ships to bring back more artifacts and more bits and pieces, but it was cancelled because of COVID. Now, what they're really hoping for is that they will find actual paper trails of things, so logs, journals, diaries, command books, that kind of thing, are in sealed boxes or in sealed drawers, because it's that paperwork that will actually give us some understanding as to actually what happened. But
it would be great.
I said love... 3.5 of speculation.
I would love, gosh, if we did find out more about what actually happened, I would love to see a film of this, without maybe...
And wonder how much of it they might have got right,
Yeah. Megan.
Well, I went. This is a sign of a good series. I went off and did loads of reading, and I was just like, what's based in truth, and a lot of what I read. There's an excellent article in the Smithsonian magazine about it, and it's about the expedition, but also the making of this series. And what they were talking about is actually, where we see one of the later expeditions. There was somewhere in the region of 39 follow-up expeditions to try and find these ships.
Wow.
And
Jane was busy.
And she was raising loads of money. There was a 20,000 reward at the time in the 1850s if you found this, which equates to about 1.6 million these days.
Wow, yeah.
And what they were saying is that where in the TV program it starts and ends almost with these people interviewing the Inuits, and they're saying that based on all this information and all the findings that they've had as recently as the 80s, the 1980s onwards, it kind of reinforces all of this oral history that the Inuits tell about it. Right. And at the time, it was very much ignored because they talked about cannibalism, and now we're finding, legs and parts of bodies with evidence of having been hacked and in like cooking pots and all sorts of stuff. So there's very strong evidence that it was cannibalism around some of these remains. And so these Inuit oral histories, they're basically saying, we need to rely more on these to sort of like flush out. And their history suggests that actually some people stayed with the ship and at least one of them sailed again before sinking.
Yes. Yeah, because it was found a few further, like 57 miles
away
further
from where they thought it was.
So there was lots more to do about this mystery.
I mean, it's clearly Deborah and I could talk.
But we are nearly out of time, so it brings us on to scoring it. So we have our score sheet, so let's go through this. So Megan, let's start with you. Plot and storyline, please.
6.
Okay, Deborah?
9.
And it gets a 7 from me. Characters and performances. Deborah?
9.
7 from me. Deborah? Megan?
8.
Good stuff. Look and feel. 6 from me.
7-ish.
7.
Okay. Originality. Megan?
5.
Oh, I think it's incredibly original at 9.
I've given it a 9 as well. I thought it was quite very original. An absorption factor. I give it a 7.
Oh, I give it a 9. I was absorbed.
I gave it an 8.
Okay, good stuff. So could you add up your scores, please, and multiply them by 2? It gets 72% from me.
It's 72 from me as well.
Ooh.
I got 86.
86.
If my adding up is correct.
It's a big hitter to start with, isn't it?
It is. It's a good choice, I think.
I have to say, just in terms of what we're saying about originality, it's not. Megan, you were saying at the beginning, this doesn't seem to be something that we would particularly watch. I just got the BBC email through that says this week the BBC E2 has got this thing called The Terror by Ridley Scott, and obviously you don't know anything about it. You just in the end find out that the Terror is the name of the vessel, but most people would deliberately look into, I'm going to go and watch a crime box set now, or a detective box set, or a horror box set, or a thriller box set, or a sci-fi box set, and you wouldn't potentially watch this because it's about an expedition to the Arctic, and you just think, what's that all about? Actually, obviously, it had all of those things. It had all.
Well, obviously, we are saying to go watch it because it gets a TV Autopsy rating of 76.7, which is a very high score, really. And it puts it number 1 on our leaderboard, just above Umbrella Academy Season 1, which all right, so that brings us towards the end, really. All that's kind of left to say is, Megan, it's your turn to choose for next month. What have you got in store for us?
I've chosen a different one. I have chosen The One.
The One.
And that's not to be confused with The One Show, is it?
Correct. Slightly less current affairs, more futuristic affairs, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, The One. It's on Netflix. It's an adaptation from a book that I have read, so it'd be interesting to watch it from that perspective.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're at the end of the show. Have you enjoyed yourself?
Yes, I hope we managed to negotiate and navigate through those murky waters, icy waters, and
Tell you what, I think the listener's ears will be bleeding with the amount of facts that they got. But seriously though, I really enjoyed talking to you both. You did a lot of research for this, and I think you've come across very, very well. Time will tell. Are you going to come back next month? That's my question.
I'm totally coming back.
Yeah.
Yay!
Was it an option?
No, it's not really. All right then. So that's it. So that's all from us. We'll see you all next time. I've been James.
I've been Deborah.
I've been Megan.
And that's all for now. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Lighthouse.